All right, all right, all right. Here we are, my friends. Episode 23 of the Pwncast with none other than Erik Gray. And he is wearing his famous llama mask. Man, tell us just a little bit about you here on the Outlands server and why the llama mask? That was a question from my time group, actually. They wanted me to ask.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on here. And there's no big story behind the llama mask. I just liked it. So I put it on mostly for the King's Fair about 2 years ago, and I just never took it off. So that's basically it for the llama mask.
I liked that we all got llama faces for a time. Was that during King's Fair? I don't remember.
Um, Goodness, I honestly don't recall off the top of my
Yeah,
head what the event was for that.
I don't either, but I do remember, and it's just kind of funny seeing everybody run around with the llama mask on. But
Yeah, and the
yeah.
giant llama statue in the center of Prevalia. Yeah.
Yep, and everybody went there and worshipped it, and it was a big llama cult.
Simpler days, simpler days.
Yeah. So, speaking of simpler days, what actually got you into gaming itself, and then what were some of the early games that you played?
Well, gaming itself, that started like some of my earliest memories were watching my older brother and older sister play on the original NES. So Super Mario, Legend of Zelda. Um, and I'd say one of my earliest favorite games from the NES actually was Ultima 4. It was just so much different from all the other games I played at that point. Um, Yeah, and that one just stuck with me, and that's the whole reason why I ever even got into Ultima Online to begin with. Because one day I saw Ultima Online sitting on a shelf in a store, and it just clicked in my brain, like, oh, I remember that that name, from Ultima 4, and I really liked that. So that's
Yeah,
basically what got me into Ultima as well.
that's that's interesting. I'm wondering, because for me, I did play like Pagan and some of the other Ultimas. I was too dumb to really get it. I never really got far. I would always, man, I sucked at the combat in Pagan, but I do know Pagan was extremely difficult. But um, when you saw Ultima Online, was it like, holy crap, playing Ultima but with other people? Like, what was kind of your thought process on that?
So my thought process on that was, I was young, so
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that it was a purely online game, and there was no such thing like really as like purely online games at that time, like at least none that I ever heard of. So it was my first contact with that. So I bought it thinking I could probably play it by myself, and it wasn't until after I got it home and installed it on the computer that ended up having to beg my father for the credit card,
Yeah,
which he was very reluctant to do.
sure.
He eventually, eventually won him over. But uh, yeah, honestly, that box art was what sucked me in, though.
Yeah.
What to me, it's kind of an iconic picture on the back of the box that has that picture of it's like an Etin and a couple of dragons,
Yep.
and it's like I think it's totally photoshopped at this point, but because nothing like in the game actually looks like that, and the giant pile of treasure. But yeah, I just something about it was pretty magical just seeing that box.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So my father, on the weekends we would go to like CompUSA. Like almost every Saturday we'd go to CompUSA or Best Buy or just random computer stores. And I would always go straight over to the games, and I would just be looking at the box art of all the games, and that's how I knew, hey, I want this game. And then of course, just like you said, you get it home and it's nothing like in the game, but still, I would just look at the box art and be like, oh, I want to figure out what this is, or I want to fight one of those, or it just it the box art, the old box art was really something amazing for older games, and it. I guess you could still get physical copies of games if you try very hard, but for the most part, everything's digital downloads, and I think it kind of loses a little bit of its luster, right?
Yeah, physical media has really lost so much from the past, and it wasn't just the box art too, because at least specific to Ultima, you also got like the cloth map,
Mhm.
and and in the single player games, you'd also get those like physical books that were written from the perspective of a in-game character.
Yeah,
Like so, all these things together really made for a much more immersive experience, I think. Um, and yeah, I think that's something that's absolutely missing today because it's just very sterile. Like you just go online, you download the game,
yeah,
and you fire it up and play. You don't have a physical thing that you're holding in your hand. Like when you're away from the computer, you can't like flip through this, you know, this book written by one of the characters inside the game that gives you insight into the game itself.
yeah,
Yeah, I really think that's missing
yeah.
these days.
Totally, totally. And I think it adds so much more replayability, immersion. Like you really buy into games with that, and I think that's probably a big part of one of the reasons we all still play Ultima today is just because I mean, it's pretty similar when I ask people like, tell me about your early days. A lot of them will say like, well, if I wasn't playing the game, I'm reading the instruction book or I'm looking
Mhm.
at the art on the box or things like that. Whereas now it's it's like you just go online to look at some guides or a wiki or something, to figure out how to play the game. And once you play it a little while, it's so easy just to move on to the next because I don't feel like there's that initial buy-in anymore to games that there used to be. And I miss it. I miss it completely.
I miss that too. Like now, you can just hop on, YouTube and find videos about the game and or watch other people play it through streams.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, none of that existed back, 27 years ago when Ultima Online
Yeah.
launched.
We recently a small group of us jumped on Path of Exile 2, and in my Discord we have PoE2 no guides, and so the premise was pretty simple. We weren't going to look up any guides or wikis or anything like that. We were just going to play the game, and the only information that we would learn is that from each other while we were playing together. Now, I'm sure there were some of the guys in that group that were looking up some stuff. I don't care, whatever. But for me, it made me play it a little bit longer. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I do though, wish that because this was the same thing. I just got a key and I typed it in, and the game downloaded into my Steam, and I logged it in from there. But I think I'd still probably be playing it quite a bit if I had some of the art in the books and really buy in with the character that you don't get these days. So, but
Have a physical cloth map hanging on your wall 2 feet away that you can look
yeah,
at. Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. But so as far as Ultima Online, I mean, you've been playing it since it came out, basically. Is that right?
Yeah, 1997. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Where was it like right when it came out, or was it
It
a little
was,
bit of a
I want to say it was around Christmas time in 1997. So I think it was
yeah
very shortly after the beta ended.
yeah
I don't
yeah
remember offhand how long, but it was pretty early days. It was back when you could still like chop a body up and cook it into leg jerky and eat it. So that wasn't censored yet. So
yeah
it was pretty pretty early on.
yeah that's good. My father had started playing a lot. I reference my father in this game a lot because that's my early like
Mhm.
thoughts, right? And
Yeah.
my father had started playing it around that same time, and I can just remember some of the older things like that, and also just the stat loss and getting all that stuff. I remember him looting houses and everything. It's just crazy, crazy how it
It
used to
was
be.
the Wild West.
Hmm.
It really was.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, what kind of player were you when you started UO? Were you a jerk? Were you like a helpful, noble person,
Well,
or what?
I mean, at the very beginning, I was just clueless. I had no idea. I was walking around Britain because I recognized the name of that town from playing Ultima 4, so I started there. And I was just walking around. I remember seeing, like, one of my earliest memories is saw someone wearing bone armor, and I thought that was
Hmm.
just the coolest thing ever.
Uh-huh.
So I was like asking him like where he got it, and I don't think he must have been like AFK or something because he never responded. But that was like the very first thing I remembered. And then I wandered north and just kind of went through the woods up into was it Despise,
Hmm.
and that's when I encountered murderers for the first time, and I had no clue what was happening, and I died. And then after that, I decided I would become a righteous avenger against PKs by creating a new character dedicated to hunting them down and killing them, who
Oh,
was
cool.
aptly named PK Killer. So, so I made that character, and I think he had like 50 macing and like 50 healing or something like that. And I wandered my way out to the Britain Crossroads, which is a notorious place for where Reds hung out back then.
Oh yeah.
And oh man, did they have a good laugh at my character's name, and then killed him promptly. And I
Yeah.
don't think I ever played that character again.
PK
Um,
killer. I like it.
yeah, and then after that, I'd say I really was kind of a jerk. I was not a good player when I was young. There was like one exploit I would use a lot, which was if somebody was trying to loot their body, I would hide next to them and then drop an item onto them, like when they came back, which would open the trade window, except I was hidden and therefore the trade window wouldn't open for them, but it disallowed them from being able to loot their own body. So I did that
Interesting.
a bunch until a GM banned me.
Yeah.
Um, so I did get banned, like permanently banned, and then like a friend of mine, I had a friend basically say, like, email them saying that they bought this account and it's banned. Can you unban it? And they did, and they gave me the account back. After that, I was a good boy, and eventually I found my way to the roleplay community, just purely by chance, and it never occurred to me that people played the game in that way. So when I saw people like role playing, like I think it was the U militia was like doing patrols to like clear out monsters and stuff from the roads, that it really changed my perspective on how Ultima Online could be played.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just kind of went all in on the role playing community for years after that. After that,
I think a lot of us had an evil start to this game just because, I mean, that's what you did, right? I mean, it was
I
just
think a lot of it is we were also a lot younger then
sure.
too.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I mean, I too, I mean, I did some exploits of figuring out how many items were in somebody's bag and putting a black bag with single gold coins to get to their max item count, and
Mhm.
then asking them to put. And this was during Age of Shadows when like Hat of the Magi and stuff, and I'd
Yeah,
say, hey, can you put that hat in the trade window? I just want to see. Somebody said it looks different in there, and sometimes people would do it. And so
oh yeah.
what would happen is that item that they put in the trade window by default goes into their bag, but there's too many items in their bag, so
Mhm.
instead it falls to the ground. Since I know it's about to fall to the ground, it's real easy for me to pick it up before them. They don't
Yeah.
even notice. And
Yep.
so, man, me and Beltane just got rich off of doing that. And I feel bad now, but I also don't because, like you said, it was different days back then, and now I try to be nice, except for when I'm stealing or whatever.
Yeah, but you're stealing within the confines of the game mechanics.
Exactly,
You're
exactly.
not, exploiting something
Yep.
or taking advantage of somebody's like ignorance on that. Yeah.
Right, right. And yeah, and there's times where I feel a little bad. I'm like, hold on, dude, we got to res this guy. We got to get him out of here, get him his stuff. This is a little too much happened to him in a short period of time. So, yeah, totally. It's a little different. I think as a community, Ultima itself has matured, but I also will say this server overall is a way more mature than a lot of the other servers that I've played on in the past. Um, I
I
d-
think a lot of credit for that goes to Owen in his moderation. There are a lot of I'll just say not so mature people who
of course,
have really been kind of separated from the rest of the community thanks to his efforts and Expo as well.
agreed, agreed. They are very active in the discords and in the game, and it's not just that they're, we'll call it, managing from afar. They're very involved, and they, I think they get that there's a place for the dickheads in the community, but not those that cross the line.
Yeah, there's a line,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where that line is personally, but Owen and Expo have a pretty good idea where it is, and they do a good job at
Yeah.
you know,
I'm glad
keeping
I'm not the
people.
one that has to decide that. We'll say that.
Oh man, yeah.
So, I mean, it's speaking of free shards and whatnot. What first of all, what server were you on retail? And
uh,
then go ahead.
Atlantic.
Okay, so was I. So, um, and you was on Atlantic. Yeah, I remember. And they were actually in you.
They were on several servers. They were a multi-server guild or a group.
And they're like, I remember here recently somebody from the U Guild invited me to like their big birthday celebration, and there was a big event in game, and I was like, holy crap, you guys have been around forever.
Yeah, I think that was their like 26th anniversary or something like that. I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was yeah,
Yeah,
well,
they're
that's
they're old. They're an old group. Same with some of the orc guilds. Those are some of the long guilds with the longest tenure in UO.
yeah. Knee Rule is actually, me and him are going to be planning a time to get him on here, so it'll be interesting to hear some of the old days, old stories of the Urt guilds way back then.
Oh yeah, I remember fighting again. I wasn't in U. I ultimately joined the Moonglow Town Council, but
Okay.
our enemies were also the orcs. So I remember going and fighting the orcs, at their the the uh, the orc fort in U a lot.
Yeah.
Way back in those days.
Uh-huh. Good stuff, man. Yeah. What was your like? When did you leave Atlantic? And I mean, was there a period where you didn't play and then you found free servers, or what did that kind of look like?
Um, I'd say I played pretty steadily for a number of years on Atlantic, and then in total probably about 12 years. But I'd say my playtime kind of varied a lot as the years went on. I played other games and would come back for a little bit. And a big part of that was like a lot of the people that I knew had moved on from
Yeah.
Ultima. So there was fewer and fewer people that I recognize, and that, like your friends disappear basically.
Yep.
And so there's fewer reasons to keep coming back. And I'd say after about 12 years, I didn't really have many people left. So I think that was about when I moved on, and I didn't play for quite a while. I'd say about 6 years ago, I played on Ultima Online Renaissance, that free shard.
Yep. Yeah.
I played that for about a year. There wasn't a very big population, and the RP community was very, very small. Um, and then I stopped playing there, and I came to Outlands.
Mhm.
And then from there, I was only a player for about 2 months, and I joined the Sir Guild. But ultimately, I felt that that Outlands wasn't really for me either. And
Yeah.
I told Owen, I sent him a message like when I left, like, this isn't for me, but best of luck. And if you need anyone to run a library or something, just let me know. And then I think it was the next day, he sent me a message asking me if I wanted to be a seer. So
That's good. Yeah. So I got to be honest with you. I did a little creeping at the of like your early messages, just to kind of like gauge a little bit of some of that. And yeah, I noticed how it was pretty quick. You kind of became a seer, and so I was a little curious as to like how that transition went into you kind of going from player to you know, staff basically, and so that answers that. That's pretty cool. Was it like? I mean, obviously, I guess at that point you have to close down your player account, and then you have whatever a seer account is. Is that kind of how that works?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't a problem because I already basically quit at that
Yeah,
point, so
yeah,
I
of
didn't
course.
care about the
Yeah,
player account at all, and then I already gave away the meager possessions that I had acquired, so I didn't have anything. But yeah, when you become staff, you cannot be a player.
right.
So you get a special account that has your GM access or whatever, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely a conflict of interest, as they say there, right?
Yes, definitely. And it was pretty quick, but they did have me be a counselor for quite a while first.
Yeah,
Probably just to make sure, I knew enough and wasn't going to
yeah.
abuse the powers or something.
So was
Um,
that you a lot of checking on miners and lumberers and stuff like
in
that?
those early days, yeah, it
Yeah,
was checking on minors and just answering pages and trying to help players. Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, so you probably checked me a lot then. I was
Uh,
there every time.
I've put a fair number of people in jail.
That's yeah, yeah. Amish. He obviously wasn't staff here, but I can't remember. D word server. Just I don't know. It was a UO gamer server, I think. But
Demise.
anyway, yeah, I think that's it. But he was staff, and man, he said that he just put so many people in jail just from unattended heart everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a
that's
lot. There's a lot
yeah.
of people who do that.
Yeah, I think here on Outlands, this they've really done a good job mitigating it, and every time they do, they're able to overcome whatever it is that they figure a slight way around it. You know what I mean? And I got to hats off to them for making sure to do what they can to keep the economy in check and not just letting it run rampant, because that really is the longevity of the server. That's what's going to let us play. We've been playing 6 years now. That's what it's going to let us play another 6 years.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah, Lucius is really on top of that stuff, and he's great at it. And it just makes sense to put in mechanical changes instead of relying on just counselors checking and seeing, trying to catch people,
yeah,
AFK mining or whatever.
totally.
Um, so yeah, he's really good at that, and that's a huge credit to him.
Yeah. So I mean, when you became a seer or a counselor, and then eventually transitioned into a seer, was it kind of like you told Owen, like, hey, look, I really like role playing. Outlands has a pretty good role playing community, and I want to do what I can to help in that. I mean, what kind of got you from counselor to seer, and then obviously in your role? Because from my eyes, and I could be wrong, but you're like the head of the RP as far as staff goes, right?
More or less, probably
Sure,
less ish now, just because of real life.
of
Um,
course, yeah,
but no, Owen originally did message me to be to be a seer. There wasn't any seers at the time for Outlands.
hmm
So the intention was always for me to be that and to basically interact with the RP community and run events and stuff like that.
yeah,
Me being a counselor first was kind of like the trial run, I
yeah,
guess. And that went on for quite a long time. And I actually got pretty impatient because
yeah,
it was several months. It was months, or I forget how long it was. And I just kind of vented to Expo about it and wasn't really thinking much else about it. But he mentioned, my misgivings of, being a counselor when I was supposed to be the seer to Owen, and I think that day or maybe the next day they finally pulled the trigger on it and gave me the full access. And then I crashed the server a bunch of times.
Was one of them, and this was like one of my favorite events here on Outlands, and yeah, the lag was terrible, but it was a lot of fun. But the battle at King's Manor, and it was like the week prior, maybe 2 weeks prior, we were all harvesting a bunch, and we could turn in similar to kind of what's going on now with the Cavernum expedition stuff.
Yep.
And I remember it because it was so cool. Like the orcs could turn in, you could turn into the orcs for stuff, or you could turn into the humans for stuff. And there were certain things like a golem. We got a golem on the human side, and I can't remember all of them, but I just thought that whole thing was cool. And we were, if I remember right, we were defending the queen. She had just like went unconscious, and I think it was right before Undermount. I don't know. All of it kind of blends together, but
Yeah, it was right before Undermountain. Yep,
yeah,
and that was a really really laggy event.
yeah, it was, but it was so cool, man.
'Cause I had so many monsters that were using pathfinding
Okay.
to walk up the ladders to go over the walls and to get into the
Ah,
manor. And of course, tons and tons of players. There's hundreds of players all kind of crammed into that area. And whenever you have like that many players and that many monsters, the server just dies. I like to believe that a lot of the improvements that Outlands currently enjoys, like in terms of server stability, were because of events like that. I
yeah.
remember Lucius, he was not very happy at the end of that by the end of that event because of the sheer amount of lag. But that also, but because of that, he created AI priorities for monsters,
Mm.
so that we could have big events like that in the future that would basically not be felt by the server at all. In fact,
Like
we
a
had,
stress test.
yeah, this was
Yeah.
like a stress test that wasn't intended to be a stress
Yeah.
test.
Yeah.
It was a very stressful test, really, for him, more so than me. Um, but yeah, like I like to think some good came out of all that lag and the disconnects, because
Yeah.
the server is now way more stable, has the capacity for much larger events now. We've had a few really big events in the past couple of years with lots of players and lots of monsters, and there wasn't a single drop of lag.
Yeah.
And it stems from those earlier events where we did have a lot of lag. And instead of being like, okay, we can never do this kind of event again, the thinking is, okay, well, we need to, make some changes to the server or whatever, the code, in order to accommodate, this level of event.
Yeah. 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 There's been some really good ones for sure, and it's just like you said. I mean, the lag on it. I think the last like bit of chunky lag was when the house placements happened, and
Mhm.
I mean that's. I mean, what do you expect? You got all these houses being plopped down and pulled up
Yeah.
and plopped
Yep.
down, and the most I think we had like 5,000 something players on at that time. Like
Yeah,
it's
and the house placement algorithm is extremely taxing for the
sure,
server. Like even just like a few of them can cause a hiccup.
yeah,
So having hundreds and hundreds of people all trying to do it at once, yeah, that creates a lot of lag.
I'm sure from all around the world, nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So, here's the thing. I know everybody's looking right now, and they're saying, "Where the hell are they?" So, I mean, can you tell us just a little bit about this place and what it is?
Yeah. So this whole area is going to be the replacement for what is currently the Prevailing Library.
Mm,
Uh, the problem with the current library in Prevalia is that it has expanded underneath the city quite substantially to accommodate just different things that I've been adding to it, like a museum and the time trophies and all that. So instead of having this big sprawling network of stuff underneath the city, which can caused some issues, some tech issues. I decided to build this out here in the black. This is going to basically like a little pocket dimension. And of course, what was started out as just a basic, replacement library soon grew into basically a campus.
Yeah.
Um, that will not only have the largest library for player written books in basically all of Ultima Online, both official and free shards, but also as a place that people can use for communal events. So there's like a bag ball field, if people want to organize their own games.
Hmm.
There's a bunch of different community rooms that people can use that are just, big empty rooms, and they can set up events in there if they want them. I also envision this to be potentially kind of a role play area or an event area as well.
I like it. Yeah. So in true Eric fashion, it started out as something and it grew to something massive, right?
Into something so big that, yeah, Owen gets mad at me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
do you want to kind of give us a quick tour of it?
Yeah. You want me to walk around? You follow
Yeah.
me?
I'll hop on here because I
Yeah.
know you move
Well, we can
fast.
start right here. This is the just a little I don't know, cafe, coffee house type thing. Just a casual hangout area.
Yeah, with the delicious cakes I see back there.
Let's see. We'll start with the bag ball field, which is
Okay.
down this way.
I like the how it seems like it's floating,
Yeah,
floating in
yeah. I
space in the
kind of
void.
embrace the whole kind of like pocket dimension of the time dungeon, and just kind of extrapolated that
Yeah.
and use that for here.
I like bag ball. Is so with bag ball, is it used quite a bit? Do you think it was used as much as you thought it would be over there in
Oh,
time?
the void ball.
Yeah, yeah.
I have absolutely no clue if anyone has used it or not. All right, we'll show you some of these larger buildings. These are going to be the main buildings for housing all the
Cool.
books. So all these,
Uh-oh, I lost you.
yeah.
There we go. Sorry.
So all of these little nooks and crannies will be filled with bookshelves, and
Okay.
on the bookshelves will be primarily player-written books.
So
And you'll be
how
able, yep, go
yeah,
on.
yeah, I was gonna say how if it's player written books, how do let's say I write a really cool book about Pwnstarr and his journey or whatever, and I want to turn it in as a player written book, how would I do that?
At, right now, there is a drop box in front of the prevailing library that you can
Okay.
just drop any book. It'll only accept books.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can just drop it in there, and I don't check it as often as I should, but I do check it and sort through the books and put them on the shelves in the appropriate sections. It'll be the same thing here. There'll be a box that you
Awesome.
can just drop your books in.
That's cool.
Right? And these little teleporters will take us up and down the various floors. I was trying to put stairs in at one point, but man, those stairs are tough. They're tricky to put in.
Teleporters are easy. Two
Yeah,
tiles.
teleporters are easy and they take up way less space.
Yeah.
And so do ladders. That's why there's a ladder there to go up here.
If the ladder adds to the library feel, like all
Yeah.
the medieval libraries, you see the ladders go up and stuff. I think that's fitting.
So, and at the top of the three buildings are something like this, where you have like these giant community rooms, these big empty spaces that you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah, you could host a
Um,
big like
yeah.
anything in here.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
cool.
And there's little classrooms, and yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Go back down.
I like it. It's very cool. I think it'll be fun to go through and look at all the books and I don't know, maybe even be like, "Oh, I saw your book in the library," to whoever. And I think that'll be neat. I'm sure there will be people in here just reading the books quite often.
Yeah, there's always people who go to the current library and dig through the books, especially if they think that there's a relationship to some of the books to like ongoing events.
Yeah, yeah. And in the past, has there been? Is that kind of how some people figure
Sometimes,
out?
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
A lot of times, events are kind of drawn from the books that already exist, and a lot of those books are old books. I have a lot of books in that library that are like 25 plus years old from players, written by players like long ago.
Yeah,
That I managed to keep track of.
I remember hearing that. It was a couple of podcast episodes ago with the like RPers roundtable, and they had said that you were able to get some of those old books and put them into the game, and that's super cool.
Yeah, there's something called the Atlantic Repository, which is basically a big project that was created by a good friend of mine way back in the day. That basically, like, the whole project purpose was to uh, preserve all of those old books from players, so you can get them online now,
Oh wow, yeah,
and get all the text from them.
that's amazing. This room is really cool. I like the.
Yeah, I
Let's
should be
see.
talking about this.
Sorry. Yeah, I like this little wheelie scrolly thing. That's
Mhm.
super cool.
Yeah, the scroll reader.
Yeah.
Like, I envision this area, like where you would have your acolyte scribes, creating scrolls and
Yeah.
documents for the school and teaching. Yep, and this would be like the dean's office here with a
This
bar, of course.
this is the new Arcane Wizard Academy for Are You Kidding?
Yeah, I envision it's kind of a little Hogwartsy.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I could see like a guild that kind of replicates the Hogwarts thing, and using this as like their home. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like you gain in ranks and you learn and you go to classes. I mean, you could have like an entire side game out of this with a community, an entire role play thing just out of
Yeah,
here.
and I'm hoping something, comes to fruition with all that.
Yeah, of
We'll see. Time will tell with that.
course.
This area is the replacement museum. The current one is underneath the library in Prevalia, so all that stuff will go in there.
So will we like go through, I don't know, a teleporter or something to this area, but it's in theory underneath, or how will that we
Um,
transition to here? We don't know
haven't
yet.
haven't quite figured that out yet. I
Yeah.
figure there'd be like a moon gate or something in at least one, if not multiple towns that would potentially bring you here. I just have to make sure that whatever we do doesn't interfere with like PvP events, like so people can't like duck out of the event and come here.
Uh,
Well, knocked over
yeah,
my microphone. 'Cause I'm gesticulating even though no one can see me.
I hear
Um,
you. I do it too.
uh,
So will this be guarded sanctuary? Wow.
this will probably be guard zone,
Yeah.
like a town guard zone.
This pot is cool. This is beautiful, man. Like the pools and I can just kind of when you walk into I mean, you said you played Legend of Zelda, but you walk into the fairy fountains or whatever.
Yeah.
In my head as I ran in here, that's what I hear.
Oh, that's interesting.
Just kind of like a holiness. I don't know. This is very cool. This room. The
Like,
pools are
to me,
beautiful.
like, this was like I mentioned earlier, Ultima 4 was one of my earliest games, and to me, this is like what Ultima 4 felt like to me. Like,
Hmm.
it definitely had this almost like a religious quality to it. Like with
Was
the
4 when he introduced the virtues, or
yes, it was
was
the first one that had all the virtues.
yeah?
Yep, and you had to go to the various shrines, and on the NES version, uh, like to me, it kind of looked like this in a
Yeah.
way. So
I
that's just my little personal homage to that.
That's cool. Man, you got to think like he must be. I mean, I would be smitten like to see UO now, especially Outlands, and this. Just even hearing that little tidbit of something that he made, and it be turned into something like that. That's just cool. You know what I mean?
Who, Richard
Yeah,
Garriott?
yeah. Old
Oh,
Richard. Yeah,
yeah. If he's not too busy planning his next space trip.
yeah, yeah. There it is. There it is. That's cool. Um, okay,
All right.
so
this area is kind of another office area where I figured be like the campus security or something.
Okay.
And then we go down, down, down beneath the library.
Uh-oh.
So to the south is the basically where the forbidden texts will be kept. And that's where I think the necromancer currently is
Mm.
in Prevalia. Over here is where all the time trophies will be moved to. So they'll occupy all this space.
So will this be anything that can drop in time, like rare-wise?
No.
No.
This is specifically for the explorer trophies.
Okay.
I don't know if you've visited that room in the Prevailing Library currently,
Sure.
but when Time first opened, there was just triggers all over the dungeon, and the first player into any particular area would trip it, and it would generate a trophy with their name on it and some flavor text. It automatically on one of these little display cases. So right now, most of them have already been tripped. There's still a couple that players have yet to discover.
I was about to ask that. Was there any that have not been? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. There's a couple, not many, but there's a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what all of those are going to move into this room.
Yeah. By you saying that, people are going to be there's going to be even more people in time now. Okay. So, wow. This
So
is
I envision this as like the Office of Technology or Research or something like that. Very much inspired by the Ultima Gargoyle expansion. A lot of the tiles are from that expansion, I believe.
this is cool. This is bad to the bone, dude. This is a cool room. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot, man. Very cool. And I like the menageries and all
Yeah,
those in there.
those have been pretty popular. Those were
Yeah.
a good addition to the game in general.
I
People
can
enjoy collecting them.
I completely agree, dude. So it's funny because on these llamas, like we, it's often we go out of our way to go kill the energy vortexes, and we all, if we see a llama, we're like, it's a llama, it's a llama. And we're like, it's gonna drop, it's gonna drop. And we just get, it's, it's fun, man. And then
Have you
one,
gotten one yet?
nope, nope,
No,
nope, nope.
keep trying.
Yep.
Eventually,
Eventually.
It's a numbers game. The
Of
more you
course.
do it, the sooner you'll
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah. It's very cool. That was a great idea for sure.
All right. So also beneath the library, and this is mostly accessible through secret tunnels and such, or through this little area where you teleport. It's kind of a dark and sinister area.
Yeah.
Again, kind of like very Hogwartsy, where like underneath Hogwarts, there's the was it like the basilisk or whatever? I don't know. I didn't read the
Sure.
books.
Yeah. I've watched every movie in
Okay.
1 month, and you know how that goes. Like I want to rewatch them just because, but I remember them, but not super in depth.
Yeah. So this is kind of like the secret, sinister area that people can come down here and do whatever they want with it. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure what they're going to do with it, or if anything, but we'll
The
probably at least put the necromancer NPC down here wandering these halls.
that'd be cool. And then a random, what's the red monster in Undermountain?
Oh, the Nightwalker.
Yeah, I'm joking, but that'd be funny if he just randomly appears once every 24 hours for 10 minutes.
Well, with how wacky the Z level stuff for this engine is, it would be nuking anyone that's up in the library itself. Well, they might not appreciate that too much.
I don't know what happened. This is cool though. Oh wow, hold on. This is dangerous.
It is, yeah. You could shove someone in there and make them not have a good time.
Yeah, so this also would be, like I'm thinking about the Vile Guild, right? And
Mhm.
maybe they capture somebody and they bring them down here and torture them, or even, you know, path could be a little corrupt, and they're trying to get information from somebody, and so they bring them down here to question them, and the interrogations go a little too far or something, man. I mean, there's a lot of cool scenarios that can play out here.
Yeah, if you end up in the the little burning chamber there, it definitely went a little too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole area was very much inspired by what Owen made for the Layer of Eternal Darkness. I used a lot of the same tiles and the same hues for a lot of this stuff. So
Yep.
so it would feel very much like a continuation of that. And I figure there'll probably be like a teleporter between the two locations.
Yeah, this is very cool. I can definitely see an RP event taking place here very often. Vile once again. I mean, yeah, that's super cool.
We'll head back upstairs.
That's one tile. There we go. Very cool.
So yeah, like I said, that'll be oops, we are not on the right floor. That'll be accessible through some secret passages, and of course, hidden behind bookshelves or something.
Yeah, very cool.
I think that was most of it.
Yeah,
There's this little study hall type area here.
I like it. This is
And
also well put together, man. I mean,
thank you.
it's just the attention of detail. Like, I mean, even just this little inkwell there. You know what I mean? It. it I think that yourself, Owen, and other people that he's had do some of the maps here on Outlands, um, you can definitely tell he doesn't just let anybody, hey, make me a dungeon. You know what I mean? It's like
No, he
there,
has really high expectations from anyone who is going to do any kind of mapping.
yeah,
And he himself is, of course, really a cut above uh, almost everyone else I've ever seen make maps for Ultima Online.
I,
Especially when you compare it to like the original, map from OSI,
yeah,
which was just like I love it. Like I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but
of
it
course,
is not like a detailed map
right.
in
It
any way.
Not at all, not at all. And I mean, it's it's very cut and dry. But I mean, hey, it got the job done in '97,
It
right?
did. It did. And they did that in crunch time. So it is what
Yeah,
it is. And like I said, I love that map. It's a classic map for me.
yeah.
But
This this
yeah.
just feels like Ultima Online 2. You know what I mean? Like this, I can remember years and years ago there was a hint at Ultima Online 2, and I guess the project fell through or something if I remember right. I could be off, but this is, to me, this is like, hey, you remember UO2? Well, here it is, right? But it's Outlands, and it,
Yeah, UO2 was going to be a much different thing. It was like a steampunk game.
oh, okay. So
Yeah,
like the whole like Blackthorn stuff.
yeah, all that Blackthorn stuff were assets for
Interesting.
UO2, and when they canceled that project, they just moved them to Ultima Online as an expansion. Yeah, that stuff
Okay.
wasn't meant to be in Ultima Online originally. It was supposed to be for UO2, and that's why they were all blocky 3D uh, art instead of like the more drawn art that we have known and loved since 1997.
That okay, that makes a lot of sense because I remember all that just kind of felt like, wait, what is this? Like
Yeah,
where
like visually, it was a huge departure,
yeah,
and probably like I don't know if that was the first time that they really introduced all that 3D stuff, but
yeah.
whenever they did introduce all the 3D stuff, that's really what kind of started ruining Ultima Online, like
Yep.
visually. Like
Yeah.
it just flashes. It does not look good. And Owen hates it, and he does not want to use any of those assets in Outlands.
Yep. Yeah. And that's good. I agree with you. I think people either love or hate the Ultima Online graphics and the style, but I think I obviously it's in you as well. We fall in the part that we love it, and I think it just fits, man. It's funny. I'll look at a game that's super ultra realistic, right?
Hmm.
And hey, man, I'm not knocking the amount of detail that they got in their plate mail chest and things with the embroidery and stuff. Hey, it looks great. But to that end, it's very, it doesn't feel as neat when you get a new breastplate that looks completely different and matching all that as it does in this art style, right? Like if I
Yeah.
was to change my clothes, like you really notice it. And the player identity through their costumes, through their paper doll, through their outfits, whatever you want to call it, their garb is it's so noticeable that it's great. Whereas in other games, I don't see that as much of a big deal, right? It
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
I think it speaks for a lot. I mean, shit, you got a llama mask on for heaven's sake. No. But here's the deal, man. Let's talk time dungeon. And I mean, this has been such a cool experience. And I mean, it's so neat because to me it's like this giant dungeon crawl experience. You know, Ultima's always been about like you recall somewhere, you kill some monsters, you loot some gold, you recall back, and that's what you do. Do it 100 times, and there's nothing wrong with that by any means. But this is a true, you know, every turn of the corner there might be a earth elemental to hit you for 111 damage, or there might be a, you know, an exo thrug to pop out of the ground or something. Man, it's a true dungeon crawl experience. But I mean, give us like a brief overview of what time dungeon is and what kind of what your vision was for it, or I don't know, just tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. I agree with you that for the most part, like not just on Outlands, but throughout probably most of Ultima Online's history, dungeons were basically just something you recalled into. You fought a few things, grabbed some loot, and you went back home with it. Um, I don't find that engaging. Like in the 12 years or 12 plus years when I played Ultima Online, the number of times I went into a dungeon and like farmed, I could probably count on less than two hands in
Yeah.
12 years. Like it just does not appeal to me. There just wasn't anything to it. I really wanted a dungeon that felt like more of an adventure. And the only way I could really achieve that or try to achieve that with the tools that are at my disposal or to basically create a lot of randomness, a lot of random events that could happen and sort of turn it into a bit of a roguelike, if you will.
Yeah.
So that way, every time you go into the dungeon, there will certainly be things, where you expect them to be, but there will also be surprises that you were not expecting. So your
Yeah.
adventure is a little different every time, even if you've been in there 20 times
Yeah.
or 30, 40 times. It's going to be a little bit different every time.
Hmm.
So that was my goal, was to basically make a dungeon that felt more like an adventure. And part of doing that is also making it very big. You cannot have like a regular, 3-level dungeon like the rest of the dungeons and achieve that. I just don't think you could, because you need the sense of scale. You need the sense of depth that comes with a much, much larger dungeon.
Yeah, and it's let's see, if and it may be bigger now, but if I remember right, it was take every single Outlands dungeon, put them together, and time is twice the size of that. Is that right?
Well, that might be an exaggeration.
Oh.
I don't know who said that, but
Yeah.
I do remember at one point I put all of the time stuff together in close proximity
Uh-huh.
and compared it, and you could fit, I'd say, pretty much every level of the 8 original Outlands dungeons
Okay.
into it for sure, and maybe with some room left over, and maybe even add in the faction dungeons too.
Yeah.
Um, I forget exactly, but yeah, it's big, but it has
It's
to be big. It has to be big.
yeah. And to your point of like it's a different adventure every time. I mean, it really is. I find myself way more engaged in my gameplay when I'm down there with a group, you know, especially 5, 6. I think that is that's like to me is the sweet spot of a group, man. Just 5, 6 year homies. You're down there and you're going through, and you know the monsters are taking a considerable amount of damage, and you can't just kind of coast through it like in general MMORPGs, right? You get in a dungeon group, or you know you're just doing dungeons or whatever, and it becomes kind of like, yeah, you're playing, but it's also kind of, you're almost on auto drive. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's
And
very
that's
rough because
and
it's the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not talking bad about that. I mean, shoot, we've been playing these types of games forever, but that's just what it is, right? Now, this though, I can't really do that because, man, you know, the greater dragon might shoot his fire breath, and that's gonna one shot me. So I need to make sure I'm, you know, 9 tiles back, or you know, the exo thrug, the blue portal might come up, and he shoots his, you know, his daggers around, and that's gonna kill me in 2 hits. So shoot, I better have my hand ready to go on my rope out, and the pilgrim, or just, you know, a random spawn. I can't remember, temporal spawn or whatever. Like, you really are in danger the whole time, even if you, like you said, have been there 10 times that week. Like, you don't know what's coming around that
Yeah.
corner. And that to me is what adds so much flavor to it, and has given to me, in Ultima, something that I don't ever really think was possible in this game. And I've said that about Outlands just in general so many times, and then once again here we are with this massive dungeon that you've put together, and I'm just like, I'm blown away by it, man. So it thank you, but
Thank you.
it's just so cool. But you know, one question
Sure.
is, how, like, how do you feel it ties into the lore of Abaddon or Outlands? Like, where you know, obviously you've got the excavators out there, and they found this place, and you know, and then of course the book, and things like that. But yeah.
So, and this is probably more talked about in the physical book
Sure. Yep.
that I wrote for Time Dungeon. Um, Time Dungeon is kind of its own unique, like, part of the gem of immortality.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I should probably go back a little bit, just in case anyone who's listening doesn't know like the history behind Ultima Online. There's this, you know, the gem of immortality, which was uh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking here on the guy's name. Mundane.
Yeah,
He
mundane.
had
There we
the
go.
gem,
Yep.
yeah, sorry, I apologize.
I knew it was an
Mundane
M
had
word. I
the
was
gem
about to
of
say Medivh from World of Warcraft, but yeah.
yeah, Mundane had the gem of immortality, and the stranger, who is the avatar, the, you know, the guy who has the Ankh on his chest, the good guy who you play in Ultima's, you know, 1 through 9, you know, slays Mundane, and the gem falls and it shatters. And the idea behind Ultima Online and its servers, or its shards, was that gem shattered, and contained within each of those shards was a replica of the worlds.
Mhm.
So, and the lore for Abaddon, for Outlands, and I didn't create this, this was from before I joined. Um, Outlands is the shard that is physically closest to Mundane, like himself, like in the real world.
Yeah.
So it absorbed, you know, the most energy from him, the most evil from him, and it, you know, transformed the world. So that's why it doesn't really look like Britannia, but it does have sections of things that look like
Similarities.
Britannia. So, you
Yeah.
know, like Cambria is obviously probably the closest, you know, proximity to Trinsic.
Yep.
But, you know, Andaria looks very similar to Britain, and there's of course Cove, which in Outlands is you know, all burnt and destroyed.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of similar features, but it's a very, very different world. And where time comes in is, time is like a smaller fusion of gems, like fused together by this evil magic from, you know, the corpse of Mundane. And that's why there are bits and pieces from all sorts of different Ultima lore, plus some original lore and Avedon lore. Because it's basically an amalgamation of all these different pieces of shards fused together.
That's cool.
And you can hop to it through, the silver gates.
Yeah. That's really cool. And then that's even in Shadowspire Cathedral, am I right?
Yep, that was basically the seeds of the idea were kind of born there.
Yeah.
Like none of that stuff was even originally planned for Shadowspire. That was something kind of added on because I felt like Shadowspire as a 2-level dungeon just didn't quite feel big enough or epic enough for an expansion.
Yeah.
So kind of added that on towards the end. And time was, I guess, an evolution of that idea.
I think it was a very good add-on to there because I can remember going through and seeing like the Lich Lair, right? And if we played the original UO, we've all spent many hours in that room. And,
Mhm.
to see it, and I think the like gray, shadowy touch to it gives it even more of that like it's out of place, but it's supposed to be there. Like it just adds to that nostalgic feeling of
Yeah,
that spot.
it's nostalgic, but you can tell that it's different, and
Yep.
it's and in terms of the story, it's like
Yeah.
an old and destroyed part of Britannia that we all know
Yeah.
and love.
And the Weeping King, right?
Yeah, yep, that was Lord British.
And that was a whole quest line. I can remember spending a little bit of time just trying to steal from him because he had that, or you could snoop him, right?
Yeah, yep.
And I would jump on tests and just try to figure out like how can I do this, and it never worked. Obviously, there was a whole story that I just completely
Yeah,
missed, and
there was bits of there's hints and little bits of story scattered all throughout the world,
yeah,
and it took, I think, 10 months for 2 players, Sir Owain and Buzoof, to kind of collaborate, and they eventually did solve it after about 10 months. And
yeah,
so they were the ones who solved it and ended up getting the orb of the moons.
that's cool. That's very cool. And I mean, there was something similar in Undermountain as well, right? I mean, not to that extent, but there was some
Ericton Bluffs.
Urchin Bluffs. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think I did a big one for Undermountain,
yeah,
but Ericton Bluffs had a lever puzzle that took Bazoof solved that one too.
yeah.
I forget how long it took him to do it, but yeah, he's the one who solved it. I think it took like a month or 2 months or something like that.
That's cool. That's cool. So back on time, walk me through your pitch to Owen. I mean, was it just like a hey, I want to do this, or was it like it took some time to kind of win him over on the idea of Time Dungeon, or what?
Uh, well, not really, because it really was more, I'd say, project, creep. Than Yeah, I never really pitched it to him, to be honest. He at one point we had what it was the original the Underworld map from Ultima Online, which was their replication of it from the game Ultima Underworld. So it was just that one single level, which is right now time level 3, but in a very different way. And he just kind of had that and basically said I could make a dungeon out of it.
Hmm.
and and that was like the very beginning of time. It was just a single level, and it still had really difficult monsters and had some puzzle elements, but of course it was a much smaller area to work with, so it wasn't as grand of scope as it is now. um, but it had all of the little elements that would become full-on features of time later on. I created the rune system out of XML spawners, which was rather difficult to do, but it worked, for that one level.
Yeah.
And from there, I noticed a couple of unused areas in the map. One was the ship that is now the part of time, and the sewers. these already existed well before time on Outlands, but they were never used for anything. So I asked Owen if I could use them, and he said, "Yeah, sure." So I started incorporating those into time as well, as well as the Stonegate part of the map. And then from there, I just started making more. Like I really wanted to make a level that looked kind of like Shame level 5, so I built that, and that ultimately became time level 2. And then I just kept building from there. This was like over the course of like 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd build something for a while, and then wouldn't touch it again for like a couple months. And then I'd go back and build some more, and Owen kept messaging me like what the hell are you doing? What are you building now? What the hell is this? Like, why are you taking up all this space? There wasn't as much space in the black back then either 2 years ago. Like, that was expanded afterwards all the space.
I remember they extended the ocean out like crazy, and I guess that was kind of part of that too, right?
Yeah, that was all kind of part of that, because I soaked up all the rooms, so they had to expand the map a bit.
That's funny.
That's just another example.
You're welcome, boaters. You're welcome, boaters.
You think it's just another example of me dicking around and screwing something up, and them, Owen and Luthien and all them, making things bigger and better because of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, man.
That's the way I choose to look at it.
I'm with it. Just keep doing what you're doing, man, because it's only getting better, right?
So that was kind of the evolution of it, and it was originally supposed to be released like 2 years ago or 3 years ago at this point, just about, as a its own little standalone dungeon, kind of like the Forsaken Keep, which is just a single level like pseudo dungeon, like subterranean area is kind of what we call them. But for whatever, I forget the reason why, but it was decided not to do that, and it was delayed. So every time it was delayed, I just kind of added more to it, and it became bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And it was delayed multiple times. So of course, multiple times it grew and grew until, eventually the Wildland expansion, and it was decided, okay, well, this will be, the big dungeon for the Wildland expansion, that and Crawl Hive.
Sure. Yeah, which both have been very successful. Crawl's very populated all the time as well. So.
Oh yeah, that's a great dungeon. I mean, it's Carathin Keep, so that's a classic design.
Yeah. So, one of my questions I was going to ask, how many hours did you estimate in the creation of time? But
I couldn't estimate. It was like 2 years, but it was like off and on throughout.
Yeah. I was going to say it's probably too hard to even answer that.
It's definitely hundreds and hundreds of hours, but I couldn't begin to tell you. I don't want to.
Yeah. So did the book like come before or after the dungeon? And then, I mean, again, like, I mean, roughly.
Mostly after. Like, I had the dungeon most of the way, finished before the expansion, and then I wrote the book with making sure there was enough time to do it before the expansion launched.
Yeah. I think it was really well done, man, because it just on the beginning of our conversation about putting a perspective of a person that's not you, that's obviously in the game, you know what I mean? Like, it really, if you read that book or even parts of it, and then you go down into the dungeon, it's just like, oh, I remember reading about this, and there are some tips in there, like you kind of get an idea of what to do. I mean, it doesn't like flat out say like use flame strike, but it's
I was very intentional in making it kind of vague and nebulous in that way, because I don't want it's not a tip book. It's really a lore book.
Yep.
That has some tips in it. Yep. And it's written from the perspective of a character that existed within the universe.
Yeah.
So it's going to be flawed, and it's an unreliable narrator. So you kind of have to take some of it with a grain of salt. But it's really the I wrote it because I really just wanted to have something physical that people could have.
Yeah.
That is, part of Outlands and UO in general. And again, like going back to what we said earlier, like that is something that's missing a lot in modern day games. There's just not, that physical book or the artwork or whatever. So that's why I have the book with it as
That's
well.
I think it's very cool. So you probably just sat down there, Microsoft Word or whatever, and just started typing away with the narrative of it all. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, I started out with the outline
Yeah.
to kind of figure out what I was going to write, but yeah,
Yeah.
and just chipped away at it over a few months.
Did so? Are there going to be more books?
Yes,
Okay.
there's two books that I'm currently working on. Um, the main one is basically going to be a book of maps because I know everybody loves maps.
Yeah.
It doesn't come with a cloth map, but it's a
Oh.
it's going to be a decent sized high quality book with using nice thick photo paper for the maps, it and the book is also going to have a bunch of lore and stories that fit with each of the maps,
That's cool.
and the maps are for all the different regions of Avedon. So there'll be a map of Andar, not just Andaria, but like the entire Andarian region, and then there will be some some lore and about the like historical events that have occurred in that area.
Yeah, like Andaria. I could be wrong here, but wasn't Andaria previously the capital?
No,
No.
Prevail kind of pretty much
Prevail.
always had
Okay.
been.
For some reason, I thought so. I guess I'm off. I'm thinking something different. Whatever. That's cool though.
Yeah, and then the other book is it's a much smaller book, which I kind of feel like will be a just a fun little book. It's the Nine True Virtues by Chancellor Zybald,
Ah,
who most people don't know who that is, but the people who do know that he's they get the impression that he's not a great guy.
okay.
We'll put it that way. But the Nine True Virtues are kind of like a I'm not sure how to describe this. So in Ultima, you have the eight virtues that
Hmm.
we all know what those are for the most part. But one point in Ultima's history, Lord Blackthorn created the the like kind of the inverse of those virtues, or a draconic version of those virtues. Uh, so the nine true virtues are basically kind of like a nationalistic twist on what the virtues are, and according to the chancellor.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's like his own. It's like his like in character manifesto,
yeah.
essentially.
Like a skewed version.
Yeah, exactly. That's
That's
it.
cool.
It's for fun, and I'll
Yeah.
probably bundle it together with the other book.
And that'll
I
be
I, I have
on.
a copy of it next to me right now, a proof copy that I need to go through because there's some errors with it, but
But it's pretty much done then.
that one is, yeah.
Yeah.
The book map still has some work to do. I still have a lot of
Yeah.
writing to do. I got all the maps done, but the writing still needs to be done.
And that'll be outlandscodex.com.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That'll be same place where you can get the Time Dungeon book.
That's cool. That's very cool. I'm excited for that because the Time Dungeon book, I don't know. I always have it sitting behind me, and a lot of times, like tonight if I stream, we'll be doing Time Dungeon, and it never fails. People are like, "Where are you at? What dungeon is that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's time." And then sometimes I'll grab the book behind, and I'm like, "Look, here's the book that comes with it." And they're like, "You got to be kidding! There's a book that goes with that dungeon." I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's cool." So. Um,
It's worth noting that like I know the book can be a bit pricey because of shipping and handling and just the fact that it's a print on demand service. People can get the book in game by collecting the pages in the dungeon itself, and they can put together that book and read it themselves as well.
that part's really cool too. It's always fun when you see a lore page drop. We got one book that I think Ganthrone put in the Path Guild house that has all the pages,
Mhm.
and I think that's super I mean, it's really cool. Like we keep referencing back, like having something that's in the game in real life, right? To like
Yeah.
a tangible thing. It's just that immersion just is so much more at that
Yeah,
point.
I think it creates it is very immersive, and it kind of creates a connection, I think, between the player and the game. Like it
Yeah,
enhances that connection. You
yeah,
feel more part of that world, perhaps, because you have a physical part of that world with you as well.
yeah. So as far as time is, I'm sure. Listen, if I was you, I'd be doing this quite a bit. But do you sit and viz like hidden, GM hidden, they can't walk on you, etc. Like while people are crawling through the dungeon, ever, and just watch kind of what they're doing and
Yeah, I mean, kind of all watch players
yeah,
do stuff. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of part of it because that's how we learn how players interact with various mechanics or parts of the dungeon as well.
yeah.
So yeah, we do have to kind of do some level of spying.
Can you can you tell us like an epic tale that that ended in either victory or defeat for some people?
um, it's kind of hard to say because
Yeah,
they almost always end in defeat.
they do. Yes.
They really do.
Yeah.
Like I don't get to like watch that often just because of real
Yeah.
life circumstances. But on the occasions where I do see like a group that's like going, deep down into the dungeon, I don't really care too much about, the people that are just hanging around on level 1 or 2 or whatever.
Right.
The people who are like really far down, and watching them, it's a lot more interesting because those players have to be on top of their game.
Yeah.
They need to really be on the ball, uh, dealing with not just whatever monsters and obstacles are directly in front of them that they're expecting, but also be prepared for whatever might jump out of the shadows at them
Yeah.
as well. Uh, so it's always interesting to watch those groups work because they are just like a well-oiled machine. And then eventually, usually, some cog in that machine doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and it just creates this domino effect where
Yes.
they die, and then the next person dies, and then two more people die, and then the rest of the group dies, and then there's like maybe two survivors who manage to get into a corner and hide so
Yeah.
that they could resurrect everyone else. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't have a specific tale from that,
Well, no,
but that does happen all the time.
yeah, that's my experience. When we go down to like six or even where you need the waystar or whatever, it's like where the damsel is, right?
Yeah.
And um, it's always if one person screws up and dies in a bad spot, the entire game shifts because it goes
Mhm.
from what was kind of going okay, but we were all definitely on our toes, to half the group is dead from one person just maybe aggroing an extra bedlam gazer or something, and then
Yeah.
it comes and it just wipes everybody. But again, to that, I don't want that to change, right? Like that is what makes time so much more fun than I mean, even other MMORPGs, it's like they're so easy these days, man. Once you figure it out, it's done. Like it's a thing. You just consistently do that, and it's done. But this is, man, it is. It's just so much more fun in that regard, without a doubt.
Yeah,
And
I
I
agree. Like you said, a lot of games these days are very easy, and that's because it's basically that dopamine drip.
Yep.
That sense of progression. You have to always be progressing, and therefore
Yeah.
moving forward. And of course, dying is detrimental to that, and it's especially detrimental in a game like Ultima Online, where
Yeah.
you're not just dying, but you potentially lose all of your items as
We've
well.
we've had a time where we were down in six and we picked up, a couple quest items, high value quest items, right? And we're like, oh yeah, this was up. Oh, we got this, and we're all like on cloud nine, just killing it, right? Everything's going perfect the whole way down, and then all of a sudden that exact scenario of, oh shit, one person died and it created this domino effect, and it ended up where we wiped and lost everything. But
Mhm.
I wouldn't change that for the world, man. Like, I mean, yeah, it was like we were like, dang, man, that sucks. And sorry about that, guys. At this point, we had to take a quick break. Someone came to Eric's door.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, totally. It understandable. No worries. But yeah, that's I mean that's it. Like it just we all died. We lost that stuff, but at the end of the day, I mean, when and if we when we get it back, we will. It's going to feel so much better because of all the shit that we had to go through to get it. It was something that we definitely earned. It wasn't just like where you know, again in most games today it's like, you know, well if you run that dungeon enough, you're going to eventually get it. You know, and it's just kind of a monotonous thing, whereas this, man, like I said, a group of 5 or 6 people go down there. You feel like SEAL Team 6. You get in, you do some hard content, and then you're out, and then you go to bed happy, man. You feel like you really did something in the game, and it's extremely rewarding.
I think even if you know have a full wipe and everyone dies, I think it's still more valuable as a gaming experience.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like all this, the pixels and stuff, like they don't really matter. Like no one really remembers that, but they have the memories of the experience that they went through. So even in defeat, that's something you shared with your group of friends. Went on this really hard adventure. You tried to do something, and an exothrug came out of nowhere and stabbed the healer in the back and killed him instantly. And
Yeah.
you know, panic set in. That
Yep.
creates a story.
Yep.
So I think that's more valuable than pretty much anything else that you can quote unquote physically have in the game. Personally, and that's the kind of player I've always been. Is the experience is more important than the items.
Yeah, the experience with people too, because
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, look, obviously there's people that have been able to kind of solo different parts and whatnot, but as a whole, man, I mean, those are just outliers, I'd say. But as a whole, this is definitely group content, and I that is fun. You know, there's something exciting about working your 8 to 5 or whatever your job hours are. I'm just saying, you know, working your job, getting home, and knowing that your buddies are there, and tonight you guys are doing dungeon time, you know, and hey, we're gonna get that quest piece tonight, or you know, and I really want to challenge our group and go down here. You know, we haven't been able to actually conquer this part. There's got to be something cool over there, you know, and things like that. That it builds that camaraderie, and I mean, just like all games, they're so much more fun when you're playing with people and you can share those experiences and those memories with somebody.
Yeah.
And this creates difficult content that you're not just steamrolling through with a group of people. So in some cases, man, you know, we have had some like large 20 people groups, you know,
Mhm.
and the early dungeons, yeah, it's just, or the early levels of the dungeon, of course, we're just steamrolling through it, right? But once you get down in there, and you know somebody makes a mistake and overpools or whatever, no, sometimes those big groups are like they are very detrimental to the group.
Yeah,
Actually,
they become a liability beyond a certain point because
yeah.
the more people you have, the more unexpected, aggro you're going to pull from various
Yeah.
directions. Yeah, it's going to be tricky.
Imagine trying to res 16 people in a 20-man group because an exo thug came and nobody roped out of the way. It's like, yeah, you're never
And
getting
then
away from
recovering
that.
those 16 bodies too.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, be honest. Have you ever just thrown an exo thrug out there, just like this group needs an exo thrug?
No, not even once.
Oh,
And I like the way the system works. Like,
yeah,
so the exothrug appears. There's usually a message first, and then it appears with a blue gate, or that's how it's supposed to go. As sometimes people don't always see the gate.
Yeah.
Like that's not something I can just fire off with a GM command. That's all controlled by an XML spawner. So I'd have to try to manipulate the spawner that randomly, moves it around, and that'd just be way too much of a pain in the ass to try to do just to throw it on a player. But no, we don't really do that anyways. That would be really, really bad.
The unfortunate thing is I believe you, and I would it'd be very tempting for myself to just throw an exothrug in the middle of a group just to watch them panic. I wouldn't, but
I can actually show you something.
okay.
Give you a little peek behind the scenes if you can just indulge me for just a moment here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna disappear, then I'll pull you.
Okay.
Just one sec.
That's good.
Like this is an area that you can see on the map, but you can't access in the game.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me pull you up. All right.
Oh,
did it just pick you?
Yeah, because we're on test. Players are not allowed within time dungeon on test.
Oh man. I did not think of that.
All good.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'm gonna take this picture and I'll just send it to you, and you can just show people.
Yeah, I'll just put it I'll slap it on.
There you go.
Cool.
This is where I just went to. This, I'll let you give you a second, and I'll go back and pull you back to the
Go ahead.
library.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll put that on after the fact during the edit. So
all right, there, brought you back.
Cool.
Sorry about that.
That's cool.
So that picture that I just sent to you, where I tried to bring you, that is my time control room. Basically, all of those little gray crystals are XML spawners, and each one of those controls a random element within the dungeon. So on I think it's the ones on the left side, the upper left side, are the ones that control the exothrugs. These ones specifically, every, I think, 45 seconds to a minute, will randomly select one of 60 locations and move, the exothrug spawner to that location.
Interesting.
So all of those are doing their thing.
Yeah.
And all the other ones control various different randomized elements of time. So, like the really long row that's closest to my character are all miasmas. And on the bottom left are the controls that randomly move around the various quest items for the virtue shrines, and so on and so forth. All of them do things like that, and there's more on the upper floors too. So there's several hundred of these kind of dictating the randomness of time, and that's why when you ask, like, if I spawn an exothrug on people, like I have to go into these crystals and manually manipulate them and adjust them and hope that I randomly select the right one, like as I cycle through them.
Yeah.
To get it to appear where I want it to appear. Like
it'd be damn near impossible.
It's it'd be very difficult to do it. And
that's interesting.
And I don't want to do it because then I have to undo it later and try to fix it. Yeah, that would be a nightmare too.
That's cool.
So once I set them up and they're running, I generally don't touch them anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, that's basically my little control room.
Good. So will the map itself be expanding, or do you think it's at its capacity? What's kind of future plans for time?
For time, believe it or not, Owen actually he was working on something that might have been a different game mechanic that players could have used, where they could go to some of the old ruins, like the point of interest that are like ruins, like a ruined town or whatever, and you could go back to when it like before it was ruined. So it's like a little,
Oh,
like an instance almost of that area where it was, before it was ruined, and you could, either fight monsters or do whatever what was going to be part of that mechanic. But I don't think anything's going to come of that. And he created a bunch of those areas. So of Avedon, like prior to their ruination, and he said, they can probably just be part of time.
yeah.
So, so if he made those and he does end up giving them to me, then I could probably just make a whole new area out of it and expand it. But at the moment, beyond that, I don't have any additional plans.
If those were put in, do you think it would be like a continuation as far as in terms of more difficulty, like than it is? Like,
No, I don't think I would make it more difficult than what is currently found on the 8th level.
yeah.
Um, I would just expand it laterally rather than depth.
Hmm.
I can have an idea of what I would do with it, all these things, with those locations, which I'm not really going to talk about right now because
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
uh,
Yeah, you don't want to give it
just
away
to
yet.
preserve the mystery of it, but also
Yeah.
because I don't actually have a full concept yet, or if I'm even going to get those areas at all.
Right.
Um,
With the current though, do you think that there will be more quests, or maybe even new monsters, or
Definitely
potentially?
more quests. I
Yeah.
am actively working on more quests for some quest rewards that will help players kind of navigate the dungeon.
Hmm.
I am still trying to get Luthien to whip up some special quest giver NPCs or something that I can utilize to help me with that.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just everything is run on just the XML spawners,
Yeah.
which while are very powerful, they're also very limited in certain ways.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll be adding more quests, more monsters. I don't know, probably not. Or if I do, they'll be like kind of like the temporal phase progressive mobs, like
Yeah.
stuff like that, not like completely brand new, but
Gotcha.
reusing existing things.
Those are actually pretty cool. I think it was Sunday night. We had a group of, I don't know, 7 or so, and we just ran around level 1 for a couple hours, and just killed stuff throughout. And those added a pretty good element to, I mean, we're a decent experienced group, right? I mean, I think I had the least amount of links at 27, and these guys are all pretty advanced, right? And I mean, we wiped at a part when the phase 2 came out, and we had to run back in and get our stuff and everything. And it was at one of the bosses, the mountain tribe boss, I think it was. And but either way, the those temporals really make, I guess you could say, it opens up even level 1 for a pretty good group to just kind of have a good time dungeon crawling around there. We went through the jail over in the area and stuff, and it was a good time. And I guess, to my knowledge, and correct me, this is a newer thing, but after like X amount of phases, a boss can spawn from that level range ish, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, like as you go through the phases, it's they're basically just more and more kind of like juiced up versions of the monsters that you would typically find on that level,
Uh huh.
or sometimes monsters from the next level or something if need be. And then at the end, yeah, if one of the boss is going to be one of the red named mobs that's from that level. It's going to be randomly picked,
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
there's a chance that that boss will drop a special time hued version of its menagerie.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Imagine, imagine having an ancient dragon or a bookworm spawn. It'd just be like
That,
chaos.
yeah, I haven't gotten to those lower levels because I only done the level one so far.
Okay. Yeah.
Mostly they kind of gauge like how many monsters it should spawn and how long it should go for and all that.
Yeah.
I had to shorten it because it does kind of tend to go a little too long.
Yeah, I did. We did kind of. In my head, I thought it was something that the vision for that was that it's something that kind of happens throughout the day or 2 days of general farming, right? Like, oh, currently
Yeah.
we're on phase 2. It's not like a group of 5, 6, 7 or whatever can just farm for an hour and then all of a sudden they fight the boss. It's more of a long server wide event, dungeon wide event, right?
It is, but I also don't want it to be too long
Mm-hmm.
because then it can be too disruptive in
Yeah,
some ways. Like it does add a lot of randomness to the entire level.
yeah.
Because places where you might be very used to, killing just, fire elementals, and then suddenly there's
Phase 3, and you're like,
yeah,
nope, can't farm today.
and like a bunch of different monsters there that totally never appear there.
Yeah,
That can really throw a wrench into things.
yeah,
So while I do like that conceptually, because it does kind of get people moving around and fighting new things and experimenting with other, mechanics.
yeah,
Uh, at the same time, I don't want it to be the norm. Like
yeah.
I want people to also kind of have their comforts in there too. There's a certain level of predictability on level one that should be maintained.
A mixture is good. A mixture is definitely
Yeah,
good.
yeah. So having it run for maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, I think would be good.
Hmm.
Um, because going too much beyond that, and people I think start getting kind of sick of it.
Yeah, yeah, I can see
Especially
that.
if you just keep killing them and it doesn't seem like it's progressing. Like if you're killing phase one monsters for like 2 hours and it doesn't progress to phase two, I don't think that feels super good either.
Yeah, yeah. The objective could be lost, especially
Yeah,
if there's X phases, and it's like, well, this is I've been here all day, and I'm just now hitting phase 2.
yeah,
So,
exactly. So I
yeah,
did shorten it a little bit, and I'll see how long it takes for it to clear now.
yeah. So as you're like developing these systems and quests and even monsters, what were some things that you figured players' reactions or their strategies might be one way, and then you were surprised because they went another? That question actually came from K-Web.
Um, it's honestly it's really difficult to predict how players are going to really interact with anything.
Yeah,
Um, like I know how I would interact with things like based on like my own experience as a player, but that is just my one way, and I know that that way is not how everyone's going to approach it.
yeah,
So I usually don't have like a firm like idea as to like how I necessarily want people to do certain things.
yeah.
um, and that's why probably why a lot of changes have happened throughout the dungeon over the past year, uh, is because players discover all sorts of we'll just say interesting ways to circumnavigate certain obstacles, some of which are not intended
Hmm.
by the game mechanics, and a lot of that stuff has been addressed mechanically. um, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have a firm answer for that
No,
particular.
that actually answers it. I mean, just fine. I mean, it is. I get it. You put a quest item down somewhere, and then it's found out if you go through this window here or whatever, then you
Yeah,
can
yeah, exactly.
bypass all the
Like, oh,
monsters, the
I didn't
boss, and
know
pick
that
it
the
up.
player was gonna like teleport through through
Right,
that window.
and have an
um,
invis precasted on his rope, right,
yeah,
to pick it
exactly.
up.
So
Yeah,
it's very I'll say it's an organic process.
yeah,
It's constantly developing, and I'd say a lot of it's very reactionary. Just kind of have to wait and see how players interact with it, and then kind of decide like, okay, is that what we want them to be able to do, and most of the cases, yeah, it's perfectly fine. But every once in a while, it's like, oh, that kind of really cheapens the experience, or
Yeah.
makes it way too easy. Then we'll address whatever that issue happens to be.
100%. I
Like
mean,
if teleporting through that window just completely trivializes the whole thing and makes it so that the player can just keep repeating that quest over and over,
yeah,
then we'll block that window. Like that
yeah,
that makes the most sense to do.
right. And I think that's the good and also the only way you can, do that, because it's not like you've got this team of 100 beta testers that are just trying to break it in every single way. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, exactly.
this is a free game that has done more development in a shorter amount of time than most AAA uh, game studios, right? And um, obviously things are going to be found out that, you know what, I didn't mean for that. Let's put a wall here. I think that's
And
okay.
yeah, especially when you consider the age of this game and the
Yeah.
the framework that it runs on. It's a very old game that's basically running on spaghetti.
Uh huh.
It's which adds a several extra layers of challenge to ironing out bugs or even trying to predict bugs. Like so often, like a bug is reported and Luthien would be like, "Well, I didn't change any of that code like in forever." And then he looks into it, and it's like, "Oh, well, like this all completely different thing that I changed, had this ramification way over here in a completely different part of the game." That stuff happens all the time,
Yeah.
and that happens in Time Dungeon too. It's and there's, like I said, there's not a ton of people like beta, testing the game or anything like that. A lot of QA testers.
Yeah.
It's basically just us, and then we rely on player feedback for the most part.
Yeah. And then you just kind of run with it. Side thing, test is about to come down. It's fine. We don't need to go back in. I can just set this part on a loop. I don't think
Okay,
we'll be
sure.
going anywhere else. So, um,
Damn it, Luthien.
yeah, yeah. Uh, but
Is there anything you want me to show you, like
not
either on here or on live? I mean, live is fine too.
No,
Um,
no. I think at this point, I mean, we've got another maybe 20, 30 minutes at the most. And we can just do it all through voice, just how we're doing right now, but it won't matter our backdrop because I'll just put this part on a loop. So,
okay. I mean, will that be interesting enough for people or?
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, we're good. Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally. Um, because I mean, that's exactly what this is, anyways. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But so where was I? Okay, yeah. So, as far as difficulty of Time Dungeon itself, I mean, look, I get it. We just had like a boost in the game, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint the difficulty. But I mean, as a whole, do you feel like, once you draw back the stuff that has been pushed ahead right now, it's hard for me to get this out the right way. But do you feel like time is at the right place for difficulty in each sequential level? Or do you feel like it could have been harder? I mean, how do you see that currently?
How it is currently,
Yeah, current's a little
that's
weird.
really hard. That's
Yeah,
really difficult, especially when like hard for who to do. Like
yeah,
so many different players are on so many different levels,
hmm,
and if I want to make this as hard as possible for like the most experienced player, then that's going to basically shut out everybody for like everybody else. Like if the best of the best like are struggling on level 7, no one's going to be touching level 7. Like
yeah,
no one else will be. So like you can't really. I don't think I can really do that. It should be at least somewhat accessible. And yeah, right now I think the difficulty is overall not bad
yeah,
where it is. I think there are areas of improvement, and I'm going to keep working at them. Like I said, it's a very organic and dynamic process. You know, changing time
yeah.
to fit the needs of the players, and especially when the needs of the players are constantly changing as well.
Yeah, and that adds a really interesting element, especially here on Outlands. most servers, you think of Ultima Online, and it's like, okay, you get your 7-time GM, and your character's as strong as it's going to get. Add a Vank Halberd or weapon and some, invulnerability armor, and you're twice as strong. But, here, there's that third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh level of progression.
Yeah, there's the codexes, the aspect system. There's a whole
Exactly.
bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and so even though somebody with like a level 2 aspect can still go do bosses with a guy that's 30 links and 4 into his red line, and they can play together, that power difference is gigantic. And
Mhm.
so I I think it's always interesting to kind of figure out, okay, what level of difficulty are we going to do? Because it's exactly what you just said. Do we want this accessible to everybody? Do we want it difficult to those guys that are 5 links into their red line? And how can we manipulate that to where, which I think this is where time has done such a good job of where, yeah, you know what, Landrin with his 34 links and red line, or 4 links in red line, and all gold and all that stuff. Yeah, he's super strong. But you know what? If he stands in the wrong place, he's gonna die just like the guy that's got 20 links or whatever. And it comes down to a lot more of situational awareness, mechanics, etc., and things of that nature, not just steamrolling through the content because you have all these links and aspects. And
Yeah,
that's fun.
exactly.
That is so much fun to me. Um, but yeah, I think that's really cool. Um, One thing is like, so when when an update like what just happened happens, is it just kind of the same blanket across, or does it affect time differently? Because some of those monsters we came back and it was like, wow, this is wild. You know what I mean? And then some of it was like, it's not too rough, but it felt kind of wonky, I guess you could say, with certain monsters versus others.
Yeah, that's very difficult to deal with because the algorithm that dictates the monster difficulty number, um, like whenever that gets adjusted, that can have pretty wide-ranging effects on different monsters, and it affects different monsters differently based on whether they're a melee monster, or if it's a magic casting monster, or if it's a ranged monster. And it also depends on what difficulty scaler each monster has based on their special abilities. Um, like there's no way to predict exactly what's going to happen when you just make a blanket change like that, and,
Hmm.
and that's why things were kind of thrown in disarray. Um, and I don't have access to that algorithm, so I can't see it, or create like a little tool or something to help me create monsters and balance them. I have to guess at the numbers and then send them to Luthien to patch in, and then make more changes based on that, and kind of reiterate and do more iterations on that. Usually 4 or 5 times. Like this last time, I reiterated on the monsters about 4 or 5 times to kind of bring them back uh, into reasonable balance. I think
Yeah.
there's still some tweaks left that need to be done on some specific monsters, but I think that right now they're looking better than they were a couple days ago.
Yeah, it was fun. We decided not to go down to level 6. We decided not to go
That's
and
fair.
try to kill the damsel, especially with those. Yeah, you know. Um, but just because of how difficult it was, but it was also fun. You know what I mean? It also added that, like, well, let's go here and see this. Like it kind of felt like a new frontier at the same time. Trying those different areas out again, and with the phase monsters that we talked about too at the beginning. And so I thought that was actually kind of neat as well.
Sure. I
So
mean, that's kind of I like another idea behind time is that there's a lot of like lateral space per level. It's not just a single level, then you go down to level 2, and then it's directly down to level 3.
yep.
All like every level has like extra parts to it. Like on level 1, then you can also go, like, you could go down to level 2, but you could also go off to the side and go to like that whole Stone Gate area.
Yeah.
Um, and which also goes down to like another excavation area, and then that goes down to a different part of level 2.
Yeah.
And like level 3 has a bunch of areas like that, like the Exodus chamber, or the the ship, and Tybal's area,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just tons of little sub areas they can go to. And I don't think a lot of players have really explored a lot of these areas either. I think a lot of people just kind of find a niche that they enjoy, and like what that
Yep.
has monsters that they like to kill, and just kind of stick to it and don't really explore everything else that the dungeon has to offer.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed so Ganthrone, my alter ego. He kind of leads our group, and I've really enjoyed playing with him, because that's the big thing is, hey, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna do this today. Like, he's got. I mean, obviously the dungeon dictates the run, but also he's kind of got an idea, and we try to go places and run around, and I'm sure if I was playing by myself, I'd sit in a certain corner that I'm safe with, right? But I really like the whole dungeon crawl to it all, which makes it a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I kind of envision it sort of like a Dungeons and Dragons
yep,
session where
that's it.
you have like 5 or 6 people, and
Yeah,
each one kind of has like their own little role in the group, and
yeah,
yeah, and
that's
go
it.
on an adventure.
So the this is an interesting one. The Time Dungeon channel on Outlands Discord is it's interesting. You never know what kind of day you're gonna get in there. Sometimes it's general decent information about the dungeon, or talking about their victories. Or I saw a screenshot of an Exo Thrug menagerie, and I was like, "That's cool," like, good job, congratulations. And then other days it's like another PvP or ships PvP channel. Did you expect Time to be as competitive as it has turned out to be?
Honestly, no, I didn't really expect it to be super competitive in the way that it has become.
Yeah,
Um, because I really thought it'd be more cooperative.
sure.
Like, I thought people would kind of band together to work on the larger problems.
Yeah.
But
I think in
I
a
mean,
lot of ways
that's
they
all me
have.
though.
I do think in a lot of ways they have. I mean, look, I'm in groups with, people that would kill me on sight on a Saturday night, down in a dungeon. But then we're sitting in a Discord channel, and doing the dungeon crawl. So, just for your knowledge, there is some cooperation, and quite a bit of it. But I do see the bickering between some
Yeah.
people, and the egos, and it's just like, really.
And a certain amount of that I think is fine,
Yeah.
but some of people do kind of cross the line, and when they do that perpetually, they'll get a mute. And I'm going to
Mhm.
be a little more liberal about giving those out as time goes forward.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, do you think there will be another similar dungeon to Time in Outland's future, or is this like the baby?
This is the baby, like
Yeah.
for me, anyways. If someone else wants to make a dungeon
Yeah.
that surpasses Time, they can go right ahead. um, this really took a tremendous amount of my time and energy, and then
Yeah.
not something I think I'll even really be able to do again. Because I started this, before I had a kid, and then
Oh.
then we had a kid, and then
Yeah.
that definitely limits the amount of time and effort I can put into projects anymore.
Totally. I
So I don't think
understand.
I'd be able to do it anymore. But if Luthus or Owen or Expo or someone wants to build a similar dungeon, more power to them.
Yeah. What are there things in Time right now? I mean, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit when we were doing the tour of Hogwarts in UO. But are there things in Time, or even another dungeon actually in the game, or just in the game in general, that we as players have not solved or been discovered?
It's definitely things in Time that no one has discovered yet. There's still quite a few
Yeah.
items, special items that have not yet seen the light of day. Especially some that were from like older Ultimas.
Now, is that just due to RNG hasn't blessed us with it, or is that due to quests or not been in a certain area?
Kind of a combination of all of those,
That's
really.
go. Yeah.
I'm not, I don't have a list in front of me right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know off the top of my head all of the items that are not yet discovered. But I know some of them are definitely on the lower levels of the dungeon where not many people go at the moment.
Mm,
So like just a lot of people, like without the traffic, nobody's going to find it.
yeah.
Um, but I think someone will get them eventually.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
funny how we all do that. We just go straight down as far as we can go. All right, this is our spot.
yeah, exactly. And like even the groups that made like a lot of progress tend to hyper focus on one particular aspect of the dungeon while neglecting the rest of it,
Yeah.
like just doing just the avatar quests
Yeah.
like over and over and over. While that's impressive, it does completely ignore all the other stuff that they like might not even know exists because they're
Yeah.
not branching out beyond that scope.
Yeah,
Um,
our group is I mean that kind of fits us. I mean we obviously we do other things, but we are also trying to get way stars for everybody.
yeah,
And you know a lot of our content is us like, well, let's try and see if this is up. Let's go here, you know what I mean, and whatnot, depending on who shows up. But like I said, I really did enjoy. I guess it was Sunday night. Us just, 5 or 6 of us, seven, however many it was, just running around level 1, fighting the phase monsters, going into the gel over in the, I think it's like the southwest corner or whatever. That was cool. Like it was, we almost died in there. And it was like because we got trapped and we pulled way too much, and we were trying to get our bodies, and it was just fun. I've said that same story like 12 times now, but in different parts of the dungeon. But it makes it fun.
yeah.
So
And to kind of go back to the question, there's definitely places not yet discovered by players,
yeah.
and there's one place with what I consider to be like the rarest rare in the whole dungeon. Uh, like it's entirely possible no one will ever get it,
Mm.
and I think that's okay. Like I think having something that no one has yet obtained, in the dungeon, I think that adds a certain value
How,
to the experience. Like this dungeon is not has never been fully plumbed. It hasn't been
yeah,
fully discovered. It hasn't been fully conquered yet,
I
and
think
it
that's
might not
cool.
ever be.
I think that's very cool. And I gotta ask you, how does it feel? Like you created this place, dude, and how does it feel seeing everybody run around this place, die, have a great time, have victories, and I mean, I'm sure you can hear the sense of excitement I get when I talk about a certain us dying or almost dying or whatever. Like it's got to feel cool to like see this part in the best produced version of Ultima Online ever, Outlands, and you have this giant Dungeons and Dragons experience in it.
I mean, I like it. It makes
Yeah.
me feel good.
Yeah.
And it's always great to hear, what people's experiences are, especially if they're, good ones.
Yeah.
Um, but on the flip side of the coin, there's also, I get a lot of people who complain about things too, which
Yeah.
really kind of drains the energy
It
and
does. Yeah.
makes it a little less worthwhile to do.
I understand. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Um, because you spent so much time on this, and it is a beautiful thing, but it goes back to the whole like people, you give somebody an inch and they'll take a mile, right? Or it's
Mhm.
expected. And it's like, man, like just embrace it for what it is. And, it's okay, I think, to come with some constructive criticisms. That's needed, that's important. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
but I think some people have a sense of. I hate even saying the word entitlement because it's just
But
ran
you'd be right.
through.
You would
Yeah,
be
and
absolutely right about it.
yeah, that's it. And it's like, ugh. But
Yeah. And
I
there's a
will
lot of those people.
sure, but I speaking from experience, I can tell you that there is more people that appreciate what you've done, and than there are the loud people that are throwing a hissy fit because I don't know, man. Whatever, you know.
Well,
So,
thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah. Well, these last two questions I ask everybody. The first one is if you could make a suggestion to Outlands and they had to do it, what would it be? I mean, you're Outlands, but I mean, you get it.
Oh, I'd totally remove recall and gate travel. Make everyone
Oh,
walk around. Get everyone traveling. I played on the shard that was like that once. It was
yeah,
I think most people like like hear that and just have an immediate negative reaction to it. But it really gets you out into the map and you
yeah,
explore it more. And I think you appreciate the scale of the map more when you have to walk, to the next town.
yeah,
And not only that, but it creates more adventures because you don't know what you're going to come across, walking on that road, between the
yeah.
two towns.
We,
Whereas if you just recall back and forth, you skip everything in the middle. So that,
yeah.
that would be the thing I would
You,
do.
you would
At least
have
try it out.
you would have people, like houses near certain dungeons would
Hmm.
go for more. Maybe I just really like time, so I would pay 20 million for a small house next to time. Whereas, the next guy would only pay 5 million for it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm willing to pay that because I want a base at time that I can safely log out after my dungeon run, and my friends in my group can as well. And it would be fun because it'd be like, yeah, man, me and the guild, we did a Nucero boss last night, and so I'm on my way. I'll be there in 12 minutes. Like, oh shoot, I just got murdered on the way there. It's okay, just get healed and run over here, and we'll restock you. Like, you're right. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like on that show that I played, like people would set up like a blockade on the road, and if
Hey,
you come across that, then
yeah,
that's an immersive experience. That's a dynamic
the
experience.
brigands love this idea right
Yeah,
now.
brigands. Yeah, that'd be great for brigands and
Yeah,
orcs and all
yeah,
and all sorts of people.
that's cool.
So, anyways, that would be my thing that I would
That's cool.
experiment with.
What other games are you excited about outside of Ultima? Do you play other games, or is this kind of your one trick
No,
thing?
not really. Not for several years.
Yeah,
Basically, once I had a kid,
I get you.
like
Yeah,
my free time has just dried up
yeah.
completely. So I don't really get to play games too much anymore. My free time game playing is basically fixing whatever broken stuff there is in Time Dungeon right now,
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
or or,
What?
wri- or writing the next book for Outlands.
That's it, man. That's cool. That's cool. What? Who should be the next guest on the Pwncast?
Oh, you should get Owen on there.
Yeah, why don't you? I mean, I think you've got his ear. Why don't you tell him to
Uh,
finally accept?
I can already tell you he's going to tell me to f off. So,
Yeah, yeah, probably.
same with Expo.
Yeah. Either way, I'll keep asking them. Maybe one day they'll have a nice, a wild hair and say, "All right, I'll do it." Who knows? But Erik, man, dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and chatting with me for 2 hours, a little bit
Okay.
over, and sharing some of your new creations that you got coming, and just kind of the thoughts behind time and the books and the RP community really. So I appreciate it, man. It means a lot to me to be able to chat with somebody that has really. I mean, I keep saying it, man, but time is literally my favorite thing about Outlands right now. I'm loving it. So
Well, thank you very much. That definitely gladdens me to hear it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it a bit too.
cool. Well, is there anything else you want to tell everybody, or is or are we good?
Just no, I just hope everybody keeps having fun, whether that's in Time Dungeon or, any of the other 8 million things that they can do on an Outlands.
That's very true.
And, if they have any criticism, they should make it constructive criticism.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Eric, thanks again, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Pwnstarr Gaming out.